You're listening to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, where we chat with real estate experts from across the province to learn what's happening in the real estate market. Here's your host, Ron Quaroni.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I'm Ron Quaroni, and we are very lucky to be joined today by a realtor with a wealth of experience on the Saskatoon Market. She currently works under the Century 21 Fusion brand. Big welcome to Heather Kehoe. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Heather, let's start it off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I pretty much can say Saskatoon is my hometown, I guess. I've been here for over 20 years, but I have moved around quite a bit. Graduated in Alberta and then made Saskatoon my home. So with real estate, I've always been interested in real estate, and I actually almost got into real estate when I was 18, right out of high school. And thinking back to it, it probably was a wise decision to get some life experience and work in some other industries. So yeah, over time, I worked at SaskTel for 8 years. I got a business degree at Edwards School of Business, and worked for Decora Homes and custom home building. And then that just led me into real estate. And here I am.
Before I move on to the rest of the questions, Heather, do you find that past experience, even though it didn't directly connect with real estate, that it did add value to you as you kind of entered the market?
Oh, for sure. And I think too, with that is I had such a big network of people that I knew, right? So for contacts, a lot of people that were in business. And so that was really helpful when you're starting off real estate, because a lot of agents start and they kind of come out and they're green, right? And they don't have a huge, we call it a sphere of influence. And they have a very small one, where I had quite a large one just from all my different, work experience and meeting people through my different career changes and through school and from living in different places.
What drew you to real estate at the beginning? Was there a love of real estate housing? Was there something on the commercial side? What was it, interaction with people?
Yeah, and I think too, I remember being even on holidays, like in my teen years, right? And we'd be traveling somewhere, and I'd always pick up that free real estate paper and just go through it. And I was always just so, I don't know if it was mesmerized, but of all the different like architecture and really cool like design plans and layouts, and just the different price points in different cities and different states and different provinces. And I enjoyed helping people. And this is really, with real estate, it's like, besides maybe if you win the lottery, but it's your biggest purchase of your life for most people. I would say like 95% of people. So to be part of that and, to guide people through that is really huge. And it's really impactful when you hand over those keys, right, to their new home, and you become part of their family almost. It's pretty cool.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that there's such a personal connection with clients and the housing. And I'm sure that your clients also feel that when they're kind of going through that process with you.
Yeah. It's, what I always say, it's like it's like a breakup when you've spent so much time, especially on the buying end, right? If you're working as the buyer's agent, because you're with these people so much and you get to know them. You get to know their kids and their family and everything about them, and you're spending so much time with them. And then once the process is over, it's like you kind of break up. But I always keep in contact with my clients, and I mean, I've built my business on referrals, which is so important. So I'm actually today just doing my holiday cards for my clients and getting them all mailed out. So yeah. Fun.
Fantastic. So Heather, 2020 has been kind of a wild year because of COVID-19. Interest rates have dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of tell us what you've seen from the industry here in Saskatoon and how we've seen the reaction in the city?
Yeah, so at the beginning, of course, there was so much unknown. And there was a lot of panic. So I remember getting calls from clients back in March 15th, when everything kind of happened, and the weeks following, just, what do you think is going to happen with real estate? I hear house prices are going to drop by like a crazy amount. And so what I did is I did a lot of research on what has happened in other pandemics. Like one, for example, was like the SARS pandemic, right? When it didn't affect us really in Canada, but like in China, it really, really did. And so what I did is I looked at what happened during that pandemic with the real estate and kind of gauged it from there. And what had happened is, that first kind of month when there was so much unknown and were people losing their jobs, things did slow down a little bit. Showing slowed down. People they were hesitant to list their house. But then when we got into that end of April, May, June, things started to ramp up, and our sales were higher than they were last year. So now I'm not saying, like, our spring market was definitely, I would say it didn't happen in March or April. It was maybe delayed about, May and into June. So, but definitely we had that, we did have that spring market. So it was just later, and we have very low inventory, right? So that made our real estate very interesting, right? You combine it with like historically low interest rates that I've never seen ever, and a low inventory. And so good product comes on the market and it's gone. It just sells right away. So
kind of a perfect combination of those two things came together for an extremely busy summer.
Very.
Excellent.
Yeah. And actually, you know what, into the fall as well. And you know what, I would say up until, there's still lots going on right now, but things generally slow down a little bit in a normal year around this time, right? Because normally you've got like Christmas concerts and, Christmas parties happening and whatnot. So it's not unusual for it to slow down a little bit right now, but I don't know. I have to say it's been an interesting year. And I would say most agents that you would talk to were very busy this year.
No doubt about it. So when we're talking about specific types of real estate, what seemed to do really well?
So the hottest kind of properties that were selling immediately and in multiple offers were that $200,000 to $300,000 price range. So that is, your first-time home buyer, somebody maybe downsizing, and that's investment property buyers, and that's just a very affordable range for most people, for the average person. So that, and it's still like that. We have very little product, very little like good, solid product in that price range. So I was actually doing like call outs to people, right? If you're thinking of selling and you're waiting till next spring, and you can maybe rent and you don't want to buy right now or buy up, now is the time, right? Now is the time to sell. So especially in that price range. So that 200,000 to 300,000 was quite wild. Things selling over list price, multiple offers. It was, and it still is.
And then maybe moving to properties that might be a bit of more of a, the prices come down on them. What properties seem to be slowing down right now?
I would say definitely kind of what's sitting a little bit more right now are those like high-end properties, right? So when you get into that like high $800-900 million plus properties right now, there's a little less movement on them than there was in the spring. So again, every $100,000 you move up, you're getting into a different buying group, right? So your buying group tends to get smaller, but I do see those properties, they will pick up. And again, when we're very affected by the weather here, right? And people still are preoccupied with things right now with just the new restrictions and whatnot. So the higher that price range, the affordability for certain groups of people changes.
So a client walks into your office and they have that $800,000, $900,000 house that they are wanting to put on the market. What do you tell them? Is it a time to wait, or perhaps they just have to lower their expectations of what they can get, or they can perhaps still get that price that...
Yeah, and it's funny because we used to be able to, and I've spoke to a couple agents about this, and it's like this year is, again, everything is just so new, right? And so there's properties where we would put on the market thinking, okay, this is going to take a little bit longer, and they would sell the first day. And properties that we thought would sell right away might end up sitting for a month. So this year is very hard to predict. Like nothing was predictable. So I always tell people, now the biggest thing right now is, again, our inventory has dropped again. So we have very low inventory, which is, of course, a positive for sellers. So right now, normally, last year, a lot of sellers will take their houses off the market during Christmas, January, and think about putting it back on in March. Well, if majority of sellers think that way, then we've got very low inventory and nothing for the buyers, right? So people are always buying. They're buying when it's -40 and they're bundling up and we're going out. So if there's no product, it obviously makes it more of a seller's market. So it really depends on, pricing the house obviously at market value, not overpricing it, and having it show, extremely well, right? Because you've got that one shot at impressing people. So I would never say hold off and don't list. I would say if we're gonna list, let's get it, promote it properly, price it properly, market it, and get it gone before we have, a bunch more of your competitors come on in the spring, because I do think that's going to happen. I think this spring, a lot of people that were waiting this year and didn't list are going to come out in spring.
Right. Heather, you might have touched on it, and it's kind of a double-edged question. Are there properties that you would say, or pardon me, let me rephrase, what types of property would you say are overvalued, and on the converse side, undervalued at this time in the city?
Oh, that's a tough one. Like I would definitely say some of the overvalued properties that I have seen this year have been properties that were, a few of them, just for example, have been in like Erindale, maybe Briarwood, that aren't, they're not considered older homes, but they're not brand new, and they're competing with new homes. But they haven't had the, obviously they don't have the open concept. They've got more, the closed rooms, things like that, that people generally tend to go more for that open concept. If they can't, they want to be able to get it at a certain price so that maybe they can do those renovations.
Sure.
So I would definitely say the houses in, some of them in even the early 2000s, late, 98, 99-ish were kind of some that I've seen. And I'd say Erindale is where I've seen the most of them this year.
Is that because Erindale is such a family-friendly area?
Yeah, and you've got the lakes, and it used to be that the houses in Erindale, you would put them on the market and they were gone right away. And it has changed, right? And buyers have changed and styles of houses have changed. So when you walk in, like for example, the 4-level split used to be like the best floor plan to have. Now people are getting away from that, right? Because they want less stairs, they want more open concept. And that's very hard to get in a 4-level split or, some of these different split levels. So people they love the bungalows, they love the open 2-story plans. And it's tough to find those in, an area, say like Erindale, right? Just using that for an example.
Sure. And then the other side of that question, the undervalued properties in the city?
Oh.
Or everything's at the right price?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if it's undervalued, it's gone like that in like multiple offers, right? And selling for over list price. And it's funny because when we price a house, right, we're looking at sold comparables. So we're looking at what is sold in the area within, in the perfect world within 90 days, but we'll go back, 180 days. And then we just compare what does this house have to the other one. And that's really how we come to our list price. So that's what you're going off of. And you put this property out and maybe you can push the price a little bit if there's nothing else that's active on the market and you've got no competition. And of course, when the house sells first day in multiple offers for over list price, your seller sometimes thinks, oh, maybe we underpriced it. But at the end of the day, it is what a buyer thinks it's worth, right? Is what it's worth. And I think pricing it at market value is when you get it sold right away at what the real value is, and give or take, over 5 or 10 grand, then that's a bonus for the seller. So
100%.
Yeah.
Kind of shifting gears, Heather. If I were a buyer in Saskatoon and I was really looking to hone on gentrification, are there areas of the city that you really see an increase in value, or even more knockdowns and builds that would really interest people?
Yeah, I say definitely. I mean, City Park has got a lot of infills going up. So generally, there's a lot of century-old homes in City Park, and there's a lot of homes that have been restored, and they're very beautiful. There's a lot of homes there that, you've got to basically redo the entire foundation, and for that, is it worth it? Probably not. That's why we're seeing more knockdowns and infills, that people still want to live in that kind of core area. Riversdale is another one. So, of course, what's happening around like 20th Street has really changed over the last couple of years. Very trendy, and the river landing, like the city's done such a great job of making that like a trendy area. So we're definitely seeing more infills, around that area as well. And I don't know, last while, like Holiday Park has been kind of a little gem as well, because it's so close to the river, so close to downtown, but you're still far enough away, like you're kind of still like its own little community. So yeah, I'd say those would be the kind of the top 3, definitely, that we're seeing that.
Excellent. Great insight. So moving into 2021, Heather, do you have any predictions of what we're going to see for our real estate market? Are we going to continue this huge buying trend, or are we going to start to see a cool off, heading into tax season? Or what are your predictions for 2021?
Oh, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be in Bali.
I hate asking the question, but
no, it's, what, we get asked that, right? So actually a couple banks had put out kind of their economic forecast for 2021. And we always look at that because, of course, we deal with all the banks for mortgages. And they're actually predicting, like RBC, for example, is really predicting Saskatchewan to have a really great 2021. And basically Canada in general. Obviously, some provinces are going to, they've taken a bigger hit, like Alberta, 100%, right? Manitoba, Alberta's affected more with the oil. They're still recovering from that. And then, with the massive shutdowns. And then Manitoba, has been shut down for quite a while. But definitely Saskatchewan, they're saying because of our agri-food sector, like that's a huge one for Saskatchewan. And even though there have been shutdowns here, I would say out of majority of the provinces, we're doing quite well. And it's terrible to see any businesses close. As a business owner, it's heartbreaking because you put your entire heart and soul into it, right? So you never want to see that happen. But as a whole, I think Saskatchewan is in good shape to move forward into 2021. And especially they are predicting with, by mid-year with the vaccines, that is going to really be a huge positive, right, for getting things back to normal. And I do then see next spring that, because people are going to be like so ready to get out, right? And I do see a lot of properties, like kind of us getting back to the normal of the spring market starting in that like end of March, April. And I do think the interest rates are going to continue to be low. I don't know if they'll be this low as they are now, but generally speaking, I think they will continue to be low. And I'm actually very positive about it. So just from reading all these economic forecasts. So I hope they're right.
Fingers crossed. Well, that's excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Heather. And before I let you go, I have one last question for you, and we ask it for everyone who comes on the podcast. I need to know about your dream property in Saskatchewan. So whether that's the perfect cabin on the lake, that condo on the river, what would you say is your perfect Saskatchewan property?
Okay. So I have a lakefront cabin right now, and I love it. And I love being near water. So if I had to take, and find my perfect primary residence here, I would say it would be out at Riverside Estates, overlooking the river. Because then I've got the best of both worlds. I'm close to the city. I still got the water.
Excellent.
And no, I don't golf, so it has nothing to do with the golfing.
Fantastic stuff. Heather, thank you very much for joining me here today. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, do you have a phone number? Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so social media, I'm on Instagram, which is realtor_Heather Kehoe. Or if you just search Heather Kehoe, it'll come up. And Facebook as well is Heather Kehoe Realtor. My website is saskatoonrealestateexpert.com, and my phone number is 306-260-1711.
Thank you very much for coming on today, Heather. Have a great rest of the day.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This has been the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. If you like this episode, find more information and episodes on our Facebook and YouTube pages. If you'd like to be a guest or have a conversation you'd like to learn more about, let us know by messaging the show on Facebook. Thanks for listening.